Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Cari Jacobson with the Optimal Holistic Health Center, and today is Dinner with the Doctors. And the topic that we have tonight is thyroid. So I want to just introduce a little bit about who we are.
Hi,
for those of you.
I'm Dr. Cari
Jacobson
no.
Wait,
with
hang on.
the Optimal Holistic Health Center. And
okay. Did you guys hear that? Were you hearing me twice? Yeah. Okay, so technology glitches. What are you gonna do? We're live on Instagram, Facebook, and I don't know, there's been that like little feedback loop thing. So you guys can still hear me? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So tonight we are going to be delving in a little bit on the thyroid and how we approach the thyroid and thyroid health the optimal way. So myself and Dr. Abby, the other doctor in our office, are applied kinesiologists. And as applied kinesiologists, we're looking at the body as the triad of health, meaning we approach the body structurally, biochemically, and emotionally. And we look at how everything integrates. And so there isn't usually just one thing or another that's happening. Everything's connected, everything's integrated. And as applied kinesiologists, we're really looking at the neurolymphatic systems, your organ system, your spine, the way everything communicates. So when one thing is happening, it's not usually because of one reason, it's usually multiple things. And the goal ultimately is to get to the root cause of whatever issue is happening. So at Be Optimal, we have everything from holistic aesthetics, meaning we want to help people learn how to better take care of their skin through facials, using amazing products that are holistic and not non-toxic, waxing, eyebrow tinting even. And then we have a Chinese medicine doctor, we have foot detox, we have light therapy. Ultimately, our goal is to support people wherever they are, no matter what your age. And right now, I just put on Instagram this morning that I've been feeling that people have gotten very complacent about their taking care of themselves and their immune system. And I really feel like no matter what shot is out there, no matter what thing seems to have passed or whatever, we always want to be caring for our body, because if we're not, who is? That's, right? Because there's nobody has a magic wand. When people come in and they're like, fix me, it's like, well, I'm there to support and I'm there to help you balance, because when we're in balance, we thrive. But part of that is what you do on the everyday. And so we are going to touch upon that, because anything can cause anything. That's just the truth. And that includes the thyroid. Okay. So thyroid, let's just dive in. What I can tell you before I really truly dive in is that I'm taking a massive deep dive on a webinar. So I believe it's not this Sunday, next week Sunday, I don't know the date in front of me, but whatever. The last Sunday of July, I am giving a live webinar on thyroid health. And we sort of did like a preview with Dinner with the Doctors. We don't always couple it with the way we do webinars. Webinars is a newer way that Dr. Abby and I are bringing forward the topics that people are like, please give me more. I need more. So we decided to delve in. So we've got how to keep your kids healthy. And quite frankly, it's anybody for that matter. Adrenal health, thyroid health, hormonal health, things that are hot topics that people are like, tell me more and I need to know, and how can I be better? So ultimately, this is a little bit of a preview mixed with who we are at Be Optimal, because a lot of the folks that are joining us are contemplating if they'd like to begin with us as new patients. And we want you to feel whether or not our space is the right space for you. And then in the webinar, there's going to be a whole lot more detail. So if you're kind of like, if I kind of wet your palate tonight, obviously I'll be present with those that registered. So we'll do Q&A, not live on Instagram and stuff. We'll do Q&A live with the folks that are on Zoom. And then if your palate is wet enough and you want more, then check out the webinar. We made it really affordable. So it's $30 and you can register for it on our website. Okay. So the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland at our neck. In and it's part of our endocrine system. So the endocrine system is made up of a lot of glands. And the way I sort of liken it is the endocrine system is what impacts your blood. Like, what are the chemical communicators that are released into the blood to tell your body what it should be doing? So it's your hypothalamus, which I like to say is sort of like the hypothalamus is like the king, to the pituitary, which is like the queen, to your thyroid. Okay, so the hypothalamus basically reads the blood, it reads the temperature of the body and says, hey, T3 and T4, they're kind of low in the blood. The body temperature is not regulating well enough. So, hey, pituitary, kick out some TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone. And then the pituitary says, okay, I'd love to do that. That'd be great. So the anterior pituitary kicks out the thyroid stimulating hormone, and that triggers the thyroid to say, oh, okay, I've got to kick out T3 and T4. Right. T3 and T4 help regulate so many different organs in the system. So we're talking about our breathing. Okay, it regulates our breathing. It regulates our heart rate. So if your T3 and T4 are too low, it can slow your heart rate down. It can actually make a sluggish intestine. So you end up being constipated. It can slow everything down. So that's when we talk about like pathology, we'll talk about hypothyroidism in a minute, but those are some of the symptoms that can kind of happen with too low. Too high, you're going to feel more of a rapid heart rate, more anxiety, symptoms like that. It regulates your central nervous system. It regulates your peripheral nervous system. It helps balance your body weight and your metabolism. It helps balance your body temperature. It helps with your menstrual cycle and balancing your menstruation. And it also helps with muscle strength and things like that. So do we think the thyroid's just like a little bit important? I mean, it's like so crazy important, and it's so integrated into every single organ and gland in the system because it's part of the endocrine system. So the endocrine system is made up of, we said it, hypothalamus, your pituitary, your thyroid and parathyroid. And the parathyroid are like little tiny like specks like rice, and they actually help with your calcium levels and with bone metabolism and building bone and stuff. Okay. But they're highly integrated. It's highly integrated with your thyroid in terms of how it works and what it pushes out. Your adrenals, in general, when I'm telling people about the endocrine system, I'm like, it's your thyroid, your adrenals, and your sex organs. Cause like very simply, that's what it is. It's just, it's a little bit more. So it's testes, ovaries, but it's also your pancreas. Cause if you think about insulin releases into your bloodstream and it helps balance your blood sugar. Well, the adrenals also are part of helping to balance that blood sugar. So all of these different aspects, all of these different glands are kicking out different signals constantly. We don't have to think about it, but they're constantly kicking out signals to help everything balance or regulate, if you will. So the pineal gland is what kicks out melatonin. How many people need a supplement with melatonin to try to sleep a little bit better? So that's part of your endocrine system. So that being said, there are so many different things that can show up or express symptomatically when we're off balance. And so that's going to be something like if we're having blood sugar issues, diabetes, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, Graves or Hashimoto's. Okay. Hashimoto's is more of like an autoimmune hypothyroid issue. Graves is going to be that hyperthyroidism. Polycystic ovarian symptoms, that is also something that can be caused by an imbalance in your endocrine system, as well as osteoporosis, because all of those, that's why I wanted to really tell you about all the glands that are associated, because you can kind of start to think about how everything integrates and everything connects. And if one thing's off balance, then what else is off balance and where did it really begin? So that is really truly where chiropractic kinesiologist or applied kinesiologist, which is what I practice, where we differentiate from like a chiropractor or other holistic doctors or medical doctors, because what we really want to understand is, what is the root cause? Can we support it naturally? Can we get the body back in balance? Because if we can, the body will re-regulate and it will shift. It can't not once we're balanced. Women are like 5 times more likely to have endocrine issues and thyroid problems. And I do believe that it's because monthly we're menstruating, our system, our hormonal system is shifting on the weekly. And so that's really kind of important to recognize that, like, every week our body is changing. And because of that, let's just say we're doing a keto diet. And one week it feels really easy and the next week it just like doesn't feel great. It's because our system, literally as women, our system shifts on the weekly. So we have to be mindful about it. And it doesn't mean like one week, you know, because you're hormonal, definitely go out and eat a bunch of dairy because that's going to be really great. Or like go eat a gallon of ice cream. No, don't do that, because it will truly feed and fuel and put gasoline on the flame that's already there. And rather, you can eat to support the way that the hormones are actually interacting, which is incredible. So we're going to get to that. So if your symptoms are too much, like if T3 and T4 are too high in your bloodstream, that could mean a couple of different things. I mean, it could be that there's a thyroid thing going on. It could be a pituitary, it could be a hypothalamus thing, and that things just aren't being read right. So, you know, I have had a patient who had all kinds of weird stuff. She's getting lightheaded and fainting, and she had sort of like a hyperthyroid experience happening, but ultimately she had a pituitary tumor that needed to be removed. So it isn't always a thyroid thing. And it is important to kind of take a look at that and see, you know, what's really going on and what is making sense and what isn't, especially when you run lab work and things like that. So when something is so complicated and complex and it doesn't seem to make sense, it is helpful to gather that data from your lab work and that kind of thing. Too much T3 and T4 in the system is going to read like anxiety, irritability, nervousness, like sweating, people that have tremors, excuse me, people that have tremors in their hands or their hands are shaking, hair loss. And it's interesting because hypo or hyperthyroidism can actually create hair loss, where there's like a thinning of the hair. Missed periods is going to be someone hyperthyroid, someone with like nervous energy, that maybe they literally are the person that could run circles around everyone 12 times over. It doesn't mean that it's healthy, but they could run a marathon and then like run another. But ultimately that could set them up for crashing. Okay. So Graves' disease is another name for hyperthyroidism. Hypothyroidism, when there's too little T3 and T4 in the bloodstream. And what that can look like on a lab test is like, if there's too little T3 and T4, your TSH could actually be high, because the hypothalamus and the pituitary keep getting signal that it needs to release a whole lot more, because not enough is being released from the thyroid. But if the thyroid's not functioning and it can't produce enough T3 and T4 in there, and it can't release enough, then it can't do it no matter how much TSH is being shown. So your lab work could show TSH really high and T3, T4 really low. So it's important to look at, again, the big picture. Mm-hmm. Iodine is a huge, huge source of what makes up T3 and T4. Yeah. A lot of people are deficient in iodine, and not only do they not eat enough of the foods that have iodine, but at a certain point you have to supplement iodine. T3 is like that there are 3 iodines actually on that. T4, 4 iodine. Iodine is needed actually to transfer T4 into T3 through the liver. So it's really important that you have enough iodine. What are foods that have iodine? seafood, specifically cod is actually very high in iodine. Seaweed is very high in iodine. Some people will just like use iodized salt. Eggs, oysters, and beef liver. Personally, I'm like gagging from the thought of oysters and beef liver, and I'm not really eating cod a whole lot either. So for me, I actually supplement iodine. So we have two sources of iodine that we supplement in the office, to me, that are like the bomb. One is extremely high. It's for someone that is crashing massively hard. They do not have enough iodine. They're not doing well. It's called iodoral. And you know what? I meant to grab a bunch of the supplements from the office so I could like show you, but it looks backwards anyways when I hold it up. So if you have questions, you know, we can type it into the notes or call our office. And, you know, we've got a lot of these up on the website anyway. We do have an online store, so you can purchase supplements there. So iodoral is really, really high in iodine. And then there's a food grade iodine called iosol. And it's these like kind of reddish purpley drops, and you put a couple drops in water, you swirl it around, take it down like a shot in the morning, and it gives you your serving plus of iodine for the day. So it's awesome to do. It's very hard to OD on iodine because your body uses it so much. But you can, and it's why I wouldn't put someone on iodoral for a very long time. So just so you know, you can't really OD on it eating oysters, but you can when it comes to supplementation. And ideally, when you're going to supplement anything, you're under a doctor's care who knows what they're talking about, and they can guide your body in terms of like how much of what to take. But those are two great sources. So when we're looking at too low of T3, T4, hypothyroidism, or someone who's experiencing it as Hashimoto's or like an autoimmune, you're looking at feeling extremely tired and fatigued. Like no matter how much sleep you get, you're just exhausted. Difficulty concentrating, dry skin, dry hair. And like I was saying before, you can also experience some hair loss as well. Depression, sensitivity to cold temperatures. Like people that have thyroid stuff, especially low thyroid, are like freezing all the time. So if someone's freezing all the time, like check your thyroid. You know, and it can happen the other way, but usually someone with hyperthyroidism is going to be warmer. They're going to be sweating. Someone that's hypothyroid is going to be like freezing all the time. Joint and muscle pain is going to happen. Heavy and frequent menstruation is going to happen with more of like a hypothyroid person, or someone with Hashimoto's. So, Hashimoto's is when like the antibodies are created against your own thyroid. So it's like you're fighting your own thyroid, and then the thyroid just can't function to produce what you need in your bloodstream in order to actually regulate those hormones and regulate your body temperature, metabolism, heart rate, all of those things we were talking about earlier. Okay. So at the end of the day, you're going, okay, I mean, that's great. And like probably half of you are like, yep, got that. Yep, check, got that. What the heck do I do about it now? So our approach, as we were talking earlier, is the triad of health: structural, biochemical, emotional. So structurally, I am a chiropractor. I would say you need to get adjusted. The thyroid regulates your central and peripheral nervous system. Chiropractic opens things up so that your nervous system can actually communicate brain to body, body to brain. If you are not connected and things aren't communicating, how can you possibly function optimally? You can't. So get adjusted. Even if the cracking scares you, there are non-high velocity adjustments that can happen that can open and unwind your pelvis. It can open and unwind the dura. The dura is the neural sheath that surrounds your spinal cord, and it attaches down at your pelvis and attaches up near your brain. And it's really important to open all of that up and to create that communication. So I can't say it enough. It's really, really important. Exercise, huge. As I've been writing the PowerPoint for the webinar, what I realize is, I'm going to digress for a moment. One of the techniques that I do is something called contact reflex analysis, CRA. And CRA looks at the heart as the queen bee. And it looks a lot at the meridian system, your acupuncture system, and sort of like your backup systems. So it's sort of like, listen, we cannot live heart dead. We can live brain dead, but we can't live heart dead. So that being the case, what does your body do to help your heart? Anything possible. So we have major backup systems for our heart. Guess what one of the first ones is? Our thyroid. Bingo. So thyroid, brain, adrenal glands, those are like the first 3 backup systems for your heart. So if our circulation is not awesome, if our heart is not functioning at its optimal, your body will compensate with its backup systems immediately so that you can keep running. What's the first sign of a heart attack? 9.5 times out of 10, death. Because there isn't really signs and symptoms all the time. There's little ones, but most people ignore their body. And so that's why it's so important for me as a doctor in Latin means to teach, is to educate people to recognize and to understand the different symptoms, what it can mean, how it can trigger us to actually awaken to preventing exactly what we want to prevent, which is death, so that we can live our life to the fullest. And so I feel like I can't ignore the idea and the concept of our circulation because it's so big. And therefore, when I'm talking about the structures in our body, exercise is key. But here's the deal. And by the way, please write questions in the chat section on Zoom, on Facebook. I can't see the questions on Facebook, but I will do my best to answer those. Instagram, we're there manning that ship too. So just let us know. Okay, someone asked, non-high velocity options intrigue me. Please tell me more. Basically, there's something called an activator. Click, click. It almost sounds like a staple gun. And I have something called an arthrostim that can actually adjust the spine by almost like a tapping onto the spine. And then there's something called sacral occipital technique, which is all about unwinding the dura, and it uses blocks or wedges underneath your pelvis. So that's that. And then there's something else that we utilize in applied kinesiology. One, we adjust or assess with breath, inspiration or expiration assist is what it's called, excuse me. And you can do it with cranials and you can do it with your spine so that it's not a big, large force. I will say sometimes people don't want it and their body is like, please, please, please just set this bone because it's so out and it's been out for so long. But we always honor people. Some people are too frail. They just can't receive the high velocity. So anyway, Anna, hopefully that answers that question. Exercise, back to exercise. It's so important, but you can do it incorrectly. And what I mean by that is that if you over exercise yourself, if you push your heart past the zone that is healthy. And we work off of Phil Maffetone's work, Dr. Phil Maffetone, called the Maffetone method. And he has like a book that's like a monster that basically says all of this information to just go to the space of 180 minus your age. 180 minus your age equals where you want your heart rate to be. Most people are actually working out way past that. They're actually working in the 180 to 220 range, and that's just not good. Okay. Just a moment. Okay. Sorry, we're getting a Zoom link here. So when you're working your body out too hard, what ultimately happens is that you strain your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands also help balance your nervous system. It helps regulate your heart rate. actually, because there's something so there's two parts of your adrenals. I'm going to try to keep it as basic as possible. So if I'm like in over your head, guys, tell me. But there's two parts of your adrenal glands. There's the cortex and the medulla. Okay. The medulla kicks out something called aldosterone, and it kicks out a signal to the kidneys that tell the heart how fast or slow it should beat. Okay. And again, there's this interrelation to all the different hormones that are being released from the thyroid and the pancreas and the adrenals. And okay. The cortex kicks out something called cortisol, which I'm sure some of you have had cortisone shots, or you know someone who has. Well, if someone gets a cortisone shot and they respond well to it, it tells me that their adrenals aren't functioning very well, because we have a natural cortisone called cortisol. It kicks out of your adrenals and it helps it's an anti-inflammatory. It helps take down inflammation. So it's just important to understand that your body's constantly giving you signals. It's just, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And then once we do, we can do something about it. So if you're thinking you're like doing awesome work and you're exercising so hard and you're going balls to the wall every time you go out to exercise, that's great that you're active and exercising, and it can actually push you deeper into imbalance if you're overdoing it. So it's really important to grab a heart rate monitor, the ones that wrap around your chest, and kind of measure. So the Maffetone method is 180 minus your age minus 5. So 180 minus your age, whatever that equals, is like an Olympic athlete. And I don't think any of us are that. Okay. So minus 5 is what your top range should be. So, okay. So if you are 30 years old, 180 minus 30 is 150, minus 5 is 145. And from that, that's your peak, you minus 10. So your range when you exercise is 135 to 145. And people go, that is crazy. I'll not even get a good sweat on. That's going to suck so bad for me. I don't want to do that. And what I would say to you is that eventually your body will create a need for you to increase your resistance, increase your speed, so that you can actually keep your heart at that 135 to 145 if you're 30 years old. And what you're going to find is that you can maintain a conversation the whole time. You're going to start burning fat, not sugars, which means you'll stop craving sugars and breads and pastas and pies and cookies and cakes, because that all inflames you and it will all make you acidic and it will all make you feel terrible and crappy. And that's just the truth. We're going to talk about that in a second. But it will actually allow you to burn fat over sugar. That will actually get your brain healthier. It'll allow everything to function better, and it will not create stress. So when you're burning fat, not sugar, you'll start craving things more like proteins and good fats. Like you'll want to eat an avocado or a spoonful of nut butter instead of eating an entire plate of pasta after a run or a good workout. Okay. So that's huge, but it also made me, and it's slower burning too. So your energy will be more, it'll start to be more stable. So you'll have less ups and downs. You'll have less irritability. You'll have less of those mood swings, which is absolutely going to happen when there's some thyroid imbalance. Okay. So exercise is important when it's done the right way. And so is sleep. Okay. So I had an argument today with a patient who just told me that she's just never been a morning person, and going to bed at 2 a.m. is just what she does. And that's just what is. And I was like, listen, I am a night owl. I am like the best of them. I mean, legit, I'm up late. Okay. But what's really important for you to know is that your best quality sleep happens between around 11 to 2 a.m. So if you're going to bed around 10, you're like falling into your best hours of sleep. If you don't go to bed until midnight, you get a couple of hours of those really good, deep. If you're going to bed at 2, you pretty much miss that. And it was funny because then there was a backpedal of, when I do fall asleep early, I fall asleep, I sleep for 3 or 4 hours, then I'm up for an hour or so, and then I go back to sleep for another few hours. So you're saying that's better for me than actually getting, like a full 6 hours, but starting at like 2 a.m. And I said, well, how do you feel when it's broken up versus when it's just a 6? She goes, actually, I feel way more rested even when it's broken up and I go to bed earlier. And I said, well, then there's your answer. So, the truth is our body's always communicating to us. We just don't like to always listen. And if you have trouble coming down, your mind is very busy, brain dump, meditate, take a hot bath. I don't care if you're a bath person or not. I'm telling you, it will there's something called hot bath therapy, and you can literally take a hot bath. It doesn't trigger in until you've done it for like 4 to 7 nights in a row. And people are gonna be like, what? It's Summer who's taking a hot bath. I'm just telling you, make it as hot as you can stand, sit in there for 10 or 15 minutes. And what it does is it starts telling the cortisol. Are you with me, guys? I'm connecting all the dots. The cortisol should go down at night. It should not be spiking high. In the morning, I tell people, if you want to drink a cup of coffee, have it first thing in the morning, because you're not going to fight your natural cortisol level, which you do not want to do. It should be high in the morning. If you need a cup of coffee in order to get going in the morning, it tells me you're probably adrenally fatigued. Now, is that coming from the fact that your heart it's been acting as a backup generator for your heart for too long because we've been running around like chickens with a heart cough? Is it happening because our thyroid's a little bit sluggish and hormonally we've been off for too long and so on and so forth? Sure. Are we iodine deficient? It could be, right? So do you get how there's just so many different things and there's so many different aspects that play into it? We can guess. And we can read a gazillion articles and we still won't totally know what it is for our own body until we know. But we can do certain basic things like get good quality sleep, 6 to 8 hours a night, go to bed a little bit earlier. If you're used to going to bed at 2, I wasn't telling her to go to bed at 10. I was just saying, aim for midnight. And I actually think that's for her it would be great. And so, get exercise. If you don't exercise at all, start with just walking. Just do some speed walking for 10 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be like an hour long at the gym. Be realistic with yourself. Baby step into it. Stay hydrated. So listen, there is a book out that's called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. You're not sick, you're just thirsty. And TSH is made in the pituitary. Okay. Hang on, there's one more before I get into water. How do I know I need to take the supplement iodine? Doctor has to say I should take or just buy from your website. When in doubt, you could take a little bit. If you're unsure, your safe bet is to take drops of the iosol. So you could do a drop a day. You could do a drop every other day. It's certainly not going to hurt. We can all use just a little bit extra iodine, I think, in our bodies. So, I don't think taking a little bit of iodine is going to hurt anything, especially if you're a woman. Pretty much, I would say, honestly, more than half the population is deficient in iodine. We just don't get enough. We don't get enough in our food. Our food's depleted. We're not living on the ocean, at least here in the Midwest. So, we're not eating oysters on the daily. We're not eating fish. We're not eating seaweed. If we are, it's traveled, it's been processed, it's been dressed with all kinds of oils and vinegars and whatever else. So we're not really getting that raw nourishment of the iodine from there. So it can't hurt. If you want to be 100% certain, we muscle test. That's what we do. If you're a patient of ours, we'll check and see, not only does your body need it, agree with it, but how much of it does your body want and for how long. So that's how specific we get with each individual. So hopefully that answers that question. Sorry, that took a minute to answer. So our body in general wants half our body weight in ounces in terms of water. At least aim for 64 ounces of water every day. If we do not drink frequently, if we do not drink good quality water, good job, Gina. There's no way that we can function optimally. So it's really, really important that we get our good quality water and with frequency. We keep the river running. Remember, we were talking about circulation. Your blood cannot circulate well if it's not hydrated. Everything just gets kind of thick and sludgy. So make sure that you're hydrated. 70 to 90% of your brain is 90% actually. 70% of your body is water. So if you're not drinking good quality water and with frequency, there's just no way that you can function optimally. That's just the truth. And so on to that, we're leaning now on that biochemical aspect. We're looking now then at how we can eat right. So in general, we talk about the 5 pillars of death. It's like such a horrible way of saying it, but wheat, sugar, corn, soy, dairy, wheat, gluten, corn, soy, sugar, dairy. And the thing with that is that people go, well, I'm not gluten sensitive. It doesn't really matter. And what I would say is it does matter, because the wheat, the sugar cane, the wheat grain, and the corn is sprayed so highly with Roundup, basically, or glyphosate is the scientific name. Glyphosate blocks our ability to absorb nutrients, and it messes with our gut. And here's the deal, guys. Our system just hasn't progressed as fast as science. It can't get rid of these chemicals as fast as we're putting them into our body. So if you're not gluten sensitive, gluten intolerant, or gluten allergy, don't have an allergen to it, you definitely have a sensitivity, I can guarantee it, to what it's sprayed with. And oftentimes it's not a 1 + 1 = 2, meaning most people that don't have an allergy just are sensitive to it. So you might feel a little bit bloated after your pasta meal, but then you wake up the next day, maybe you're a little bit inflamed, or you've got some puffy eyes, but you're fine. And you don't really necessarily put it together with the pasta meal you had the last night. And then you have it again, and you also have a sandwich, and then you have toast for breakfast, or pancakes and French toast and all the things that have lots of sugar. And what happens is that it creates an antibody response in your body. And what that means is it increases inflammation. And that inflammation is the building block for any pathology in your body. And that is what creates intolerance and then allergies. And it can create all kinds of havoc on your system. And it can make you feel really cruddy. Headaches, digestive issues, bloating, energy issues, all that kind of stuff. So then it's hard. How can you discern? Is it that your thyroid's really sluggish? Is it that you've been eating so crappy that you just don't even know and you can't differentiate? So my invitation for everybody here tonight is create a greater solid foundation to your body and to your living and to your thriving. Because when you have a solid foundation and you're eating really good quality foods, which I'm going to discuss in just a moment, and you're avoiding the stuff that really inflames and makes you feel yucky, and you're drinking a whole lot of water, and you're exercising correctly, and you're getting good sleep, you are doing pretty darn well. If at that point you still have stuff going on and you still have symptoms, we can fine tune that so quickly, because you've already cut through the muck, right? We've cleared the cobwebs. And the truth is, it's easier said than done. Sugar is highly addictive. It makes you feel very bad when you first get off of it. It's a huge addiction. So there are many ways of doing it. There's many different programs you can follow. We run a ton of them. Actually, Dr. Abby and I are doing one at the turn of the year again, for 30 days, just to really hold people's hands and get them to a better state of health naturally. But ultimately, you're avoiding wheat and corn. It affects your liver. We want to be able to detoxify and clean things out better in our body. And if we keep eating those things, then it's overloading our liver, and now it can't clean up the other stuff. That includes excessive amounts of hormones and different things like that. Okay. When we eat sugar, refined sugar and dairy, think about this. Cow's milk makes calves into cows. Just let that sink in for a moment. Not only that, they're highly pumped with hormones. It's not natural for a cow to produce milk year round, year on year. In order to do that, they're pumped with massive amounts of hormones, and those transfer to us. And what can they impact? Our thyroid and our sex organs and all of those things. So it's really important to be aware of how cow's milk can impact us. Not only is it mucus producing, not only does it puff us up and inflame us, but it can absolutely pump us filled with all kinds of hormones that we don't necessarily want. That includes the meat choices, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Grass-fed beef or that doesn't say grass-finished, so this is their latest. It means they finish it by feeding them a bunch of corn. And that corn, by the way, eats away at their intestines and their skin. It's pretty gross because corn is, well, it doesn't digest well. You see it in your poop if you eat it, right? But when it's just grass-fed or pasture-raised is how they say it, it's oftentimes corn finished. So you have to ask, is it grass-fed, grass-finished? And that means that it's been really cared for from start to finish. So when you're choosing meat and things like that. So soy is estrogenic in nature and it affects our thyroid. Now, all the research done on soy was done on fermented soy. That is meant to be a condiment, soy in general. Fermented soy is really not great tasting. It has incredible anti-cancer benefits, and that's what all the research was done on. That is not a quick process. Fermentation isn't quick. America is all about things being fast. So they do not ferment the soy. That soy milk, those tofu products, all that stuff, that has been processed quickly and it's unfermented. And as such, it's estrogenic in nature and it affects our thyroid negatively. So we don't want that. We don't want a bunch of extra estrogen in our system that is unnatural. And there are ways and supplements that you can utilize to metabolize that. One being DIM. DIM is found in cruciferous vegetables. And I have something in the office. One's called DIM Estro, one's called DIM Evail, that actually helps metabolize excess estrogen out of the body. So if someone's experienced estrogen producing cancer, that's something that I put them on basically for the rest of their life. But it is really smart, especially if we know that we just are a little bit more inflamed. Our breasts, there's like breast tenderness, especially around our menstrual cycle. That's usually too much estrogen in the system. And you can kind of help tame that down with just a nutraceutical, like something like DIM. So what do you eat? I just told you what not to eat. You're eating protein, clean, good quality protein. Obviously for thyroid support, if you could get a little bit of clean seafood, not farm raised, if you can get wild caught shrimp, wild salmon, true wild salmon, they really try to dupe you. So you've got to read labels. Seaweed, eggs, things like that are great. People go, but what about high cholesterol? These foods do not cause high cholesterol. Sugar does. Okay. Eating your meat with starches and carbs and sugars, which is the American diet, meat and potatoes, but really it's like potatoes or pastas and all that. That is what actually creates an issue with cholesterol. All the pies, cakes, cookies, all of that kind of stuff, the trans fats. Okay. So eggs do not do that. Ideally, you're eating your eggs where the yolks are not fully cooked, so that you can actually have the benefit of the good fat and the nourishment that it offers. Otherwise, that's also where it can kind of not be as healthy for us. So an egg over medium, egg over easy, a fried egg, something like that's going to be a poached egg. Those are going to be a better choice when you're eating eggs. Veggies, go to town on vegetables, eat tons of vegetables, fill up on vegetables. Your body loves vegetables. And if veggies are hard on your tummy, even when you lightly steam them or grill them or whatever, take enzymes. Every human being needs enzymes, everybody. I'm going to repeat that. Every human being needs water to live, enzymes to break down your food efficiently and effectively so that the sugars and the food particles do not get into your bloodstream, and probiotics, because you need to put the good stuff in so that your body can handle getting rid of the bad stuff without it being a to-do, because we're exposed to all kinds of critters all the time, all kinds of bad bacteria all the time. So how can we help our body? A healthy microbiome is one of the greatest things that you can do. Good quality fats are amazing. They're amazing for your health. They're amazing for your hormones. They're amazing for your brain. Avocados, coconut oil, raw nuts. If the nuts are soaked, even better. If the raw nuts are soaked for an hour or two, because it makes the protein readily available. A little bit of fruit is great. And I would be very careful, especially if you're struggling with thyroid issues. I would stay away from grains. Grains in general can be inflammatory. Nightshade vegetables, peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, those can be inflammatory for some people when you're in a really sensitive, imbalanced state. So all of this is relative to where you're at symptomatically, but in general, I tell people 80-20 rule, but if you've been out of balance for a really long time, we're going extreme so we can find your new balance point and so that we can help you be in a state of thriving. Okay. So that's really important. I think I covered it. Questions for me? Anybody on any of the supplement or any of the eating foods? I want to touch very briefly on emotions and stress because they absolutely impact us and affect us physiologically. We get nervous, we feel butterflies in our stomach, we get angry, we get a headache, feels like our head wants to explode. We can't deny the fact that when we feel emotional or stressed out, it impacts us. It affects our adrenal glands because it stresses us out, and our adrenals help us handle stress better. Okay. It's actually every element in the 5-element theory, all 4, fire, water, wood, and metal, go through the earth before anything happens. It's like it all kind of like traverses through the earth element. It's like that grounding aspect. And the earth element is stomach, spleen, pancreas. So it's why we often get stomach issues when we feel emotional. God, I just feel a pit in my stomach. Oh, it's like a stabbing pain in my stomach. Oh my God, I just feel sick to my stomach. I just feel like right? We're constantly experiencing the stomach digestive stuff. It's a huge symptom that people deal with on many different levels. Constipation, then diarrhea, then, right? And so keeping that healthy microbiome is huge by taking, good digestive enzymes is different from a probiotic or spore biotic. I believe in spore biotics in the sense that 99 to 100% get through your stomach lining. And so that it can refurbish your small, starting in your small, and then all the way through your large intestine. So megaspore biotic is 5 spores. It's a multi-spore. And there's one in there that it boosts your immune system. There's one in there that its own poop is a complete methylated B vitamin and digestive enzymes and K2. So like literally by taking the megaspore, you're actually creates digestive enzymes by its poop and they self-regulate. So it's the difference of mowing weeds or actually getting in there and weeding out the stuff. Megaspore gets in there and weeds out. It doesn't mow the weeds. Does that make sense? So megaspore is really important. It's pharmaceutical grade, meaning what they promise you actually get. So it's really intense for people sometimes to start with. Sometimes I'll start people on Peak Biotic, which only has 3 spores. So it's a little less intense, doesn't have that immune support aspect, or Restore Flora, which has 2 spores and S. boulardii. So if someone is more prone to diarrhea, S. boulardii calms that down. So that's a really great probiotic, spore biotic kind of combo. Again, all of these we sell in our store. And if you have further questions about it, we can cover that. So I'm actually going to glaze over the emotional side of the triad tonight, even though I believe that 99.9% of almost all of our issues are from emotions and stress. I'm certified in something called neuroemotional technique. I'm certified in the Lifeline technique. All of these things tap into the subconscious emotional patterning, meaning our emotional memory, which is carried on our cells, and it can be neutralized. It's not to say that we're like getting rid of emotions. That doesn't happen. We're human beings. We're going to have emotions. But what we want to have happen is to sort of take the charge off of it so that you're able to respond rather than react, so that when the stress happens, you're able to stay grounded and you're able to respond rather than react. Does that make sense? How often are we like, man, I wish I handled that situation better. God, I just let those emotions get the best of me, right? And then you think about all the different ways when you're calm and able to respond of how you could have handled something better. NET and Lifeline, those actually really help you process things like massively and in a short amount of time, where you can really get to a space of being a little bit more neutral. So that one person in your family or that one friend that seems to always trigger you just doesn't trigger you as deeply, or maybe even at all anymore. And that's really ultimately the goal. Dr. Abby and I like to teach the FAST technique. It's a really cool, you know what, I'll just teach it to you really quickly. So we'll just take a minute to do it. So I'm imagining that every person that's attending this evening has something that might be stressful, because our world, if nothing else, has been a little bit stressful these days. There's a lot of intensity going on. And so that being said, we have on our wrists, 3 points, okay? And it's along the thumb line. We add a 4th point in NET for conception vessel and governing vessel. So the way that we do this is on ourself, we come around and we place our fingers on those points along the thumb. Okay, so it's going to look like this, except you want to come around like this because your hand is going to go over your forehead. Does that make sense? So I want everybody to give it a try. Okay, all along here. It'd be weird to do this and then go like this, because so you see what I'm talking about. You want to go here. Just line them up like this. And I want you to connect to whatever it is that's stressing you out. Just think about the person, the thing, the anger, the fear, the frustration, the depression, the anxiety, the worry, whatever it is that's got you. And I want you to you can rest your arms on a desk, on your lap, whatever, just in the air. I want you to place your hand over your forehead, and you're just going to take 3 or 4 really deep breaths, thinking about what's been stressing you out. And just breathe deeply. And just thinking about all the things that have been stressing you out, just that one thing, that one person, that one emotion that you can't seem to shake. Just take one more really deep breath on that. And what I want you to do is connect to the other hand, those same points on the other hand. Switch hands and make sure that the points are along your thumb line. And then continue to think about that hand on your forehead. Continue to think about that stress, that thing that's just bothering you so much. You're like this. And breathing deeply. Take 2 more huge breaths. Really blow them out. When you feel complete, you can release those points. And just sit up. Great. So that's just a really simple technique. It touches all the meridian systems and what's called the emotional neurovasculars, or your emotional points. If you think about it, like when you're stressed, you kind of, right? Someone misses a goal. Right? They touch it. There's something about that regulates when you have extreme emotion. So when you are able to hold that on top of your pulse points on the acupuncture system, and then you think about the thing that's stressing you out, it can really bring you down. So I would imagine that thing that you felt really stressed about just maybe feels a little bit less so. If you still feel like not really, do it again when we're done, and really take the time to breathe through it and keep breathing with it until you feel like it's just shifted. And it does, and that can hold you over to your next appointment. It's like when you just don't know what to do, but you're feeling so anxious and you just can't seem to, that's going to be a really great tool. Okay. It's called the FAST technique. We do have handouts at our office, so you can call our office too, and they can email you that handout, so that you can understand it a little bit better if it was confusing. Okay. So from the biochemical aspect, we've already talked about, being hydrated, the foods to avoid, the foods to eat. I want to just touch on, just for a couple minutes here, your supplements. So there's different homeopathy and things like that. With regards to the thyroid, we don't want to ignore the endocrine system. And it's why I kept bringing it up. Like, listen, there's the hypothalamus, there's also your adrenals, there's also your sex organs, because What's throwing off your thyroid could be your hormonal system, in which case we may need to actually support your sex organs, right? Giving you something that can support your ovaries a little bit better, or the testes, or whatever it may be, right? Prostate health or whatever like that. So it just depends on who we're looking at, what's going on. But specific for thyroid, we have a product called Regenerozyme Thyroid. It's got a glandular in there, as well as a bunch of whole food that has the nourishment for your thyroid. So it's going to help, feed and fuel the thyroid, as well as to help rebuild it. I have something called Thyroforce, which is just straight up glandular. And for someone who's got a really sluggish thyroid, they're going to need those glandulars. And they're pretty awesome. But again, we don't usually sell those to just anybody. You generally need to be a patient to get a glandular, because although Regenerozyme Thyroid, I think anyone can have access to, but you want to take it the right way. You want to know what you're taking is the right thing. We talked about ISL. We talked about iodoral, again, as iodine sources. Thyroxine is going to be just nourishment, no glandular, just the nourishment. So it's got a little bit of iodine in there, but it's got other nourishment for your thyroid as well. And then there's something also homeopathically called Thyropath. And sometimes what we need is just the energy. Sometimes literally we just don't even have the energy to create all that stuff. And that's where homeopathy is. It's like the energy medicine aspect of this, but Thyropath can be supportive for somebody as well. And that's going to be more homeopathic. It's more energetic based nutrition, as opposed to it being actual vitamin nutrition. So again, that's where we're looking at the spectrum. At the optimal, we really want to get it right for each individual. There is no cookie cutter approach. We want to know exactly what's right for your body. Regenerozyme adrenal, any kind of adrenal support, ADR, cytozyme AD, things like that are going to support your adrenal glands. And then again, we were talking about the heart and circulation. So when I'm looking at that, I don't want to ignore, like, what if you need something called matrix synergy, which supports all the joints and muscles in your body? It actually has stuff to support your brain. It elongates and aligns everything. So there's less, your brain is better. Now there's less tension on the thyroid and everything is uplifted. So now your thyroid actually gets to do what it's supposed to do, because it's not trying to do the job of the brain and the heart. Does that make sense? So it's just so cool when you start to look at the compensatory aspects and how everything's connected. When I put you on a specific supplement, it like makes sense, because you're going, oh, so it's not even my thyroid exactly. It's actually, I just need to support something else so my thyroid can do what it's supposed to do and not do the job of the other thing that's actually sluggish and tired. Make sense? So Circutonic and Spiracell, all of those things are for our blood and for our circulation, and to support our heart, and to support the liver and the gallbladder and flow, our lymphatics. Too much toxicity and not enough going out, we can't do good. We can't feel good. It's why we need to drink lots of water. Okay. It's why we want to get our lymphatics flowing and have exercise and get massage and get chiropractic. Okay. Essential oil, Present Moment, is literally known as liquid thyroid in a bottle. So Present Moment is amazing. If you are like, man, I cannot get myself focused, I cannot concentrate, you could actually take a drop or two of it orally. It's pretty intense, but you could do it safely. You can actually diffuse it in your room. You can use it topically on your neck over your thyroid. Be careful you don't overdo it, because you can burn the skin if you use too much essential oil on the same spot all the time. But you can certainly use it safely on the skin. Just do it the right way and just be smart about it. Use it in a foot bath, okay, with Epsom salts, and you can actually use it in a bathtub as well. So it can help uplift your thyroid through the essential oil of it, which is so cool. And that's a Vervita product as well. So we sell Present Moment, which is incredible. And when the whole system is just sort of crashing, Elite Harmony, because that has Present Moment in it, but it also has the other ones in it as well. Again, orally, topically, foot bath or bath, with or without Epsom salts. And I'm telling you right now, if you are sluggish and you're just like, man, I don't think I can get through this day, and you put your feet in a little dish tub foot bath with the essential oils and some Epsom salts, you're going to be like, man, I can't believe how much energy I have. It's crazy, but it uplifts the energy up and over your body, and it helps you feel refreshed and better. It seems like it's the craziest thing ever. I didn't really believe it until I did it myself. And then when you start doing it, you're sold, because you feel so different. Like, how can an essential oil do it? Because we're all energy, and the essential oil has an energy. So we are absolutely impacted by that. So I'm going to end the portion of the live aspect. So I'll say sayonara to the Instagram folks. Bye-bye. All right. And then I'm going to end, hang on. I don't actually know how to end the, I don't know how to end the Facebook portion. That's so funny. Well, here it is. Okay, stop live stream. Okay, so we're still recording here. You know what, I'll go ahead and stop. We're gonna go into a Q&A for any of you that are present with me on Zoom. That's the bonus. So thank you so much for staying with me. It's just, thyroid's such an intensely deep, intricate topic that sticking to a 30 to 45 minute window would have been like near impossible. So thanks for sticking with me for the hour. And I'm going to just end the recording.